But I feel strongly that saving money is important. You know, if it's not something we worry about now, boy, we are really going to worry about it later. And I want to help you get out of debt faster and do it with cheaper monthly payments. I'm talking to you if you're in a 30-year loan. Now is the time to take years off of your loan. We're routinely helping our listeners cut 5, 10, even 15 years off their loan. And you can do this without perfect credit with no money out of pocket. You've just got to start at savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
Buenos dias, Senor Conrad, back from AAA.
Yeah.
He's a legend down there now, the rich gringo.
Oh, my gosh, look at you.
The rich gringo.
I did have a great barbecue experience at Pincha de Gringo. I'm going to be sure to go back there, and if you and I ever find ourselves together in Mexico City, I know the place, bro. Lots of American stuff, including good old Oklahoma style barbecue.
Awesome, man. It's hard to beat.
It is.
Smoked meat is hard to beat in any world.
Yes.
So any place you go. So you went to AAA. Today. I know we're gonna update everybody on the Cincinnati AEW Dynamite show, and I want to talk a little bit about the dark side of the ring, specifically the AWA content. I thought it was excellent.
Absolutely.
And so we got a lot to talk about. I want to get an update from Senior Conrad on now that's the equivalent in that territory, that's company. AAA is this Triple Mania is their WrestleMania. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about your experience, your live event experience there.
I loved it, man. I can't recommend it enough. I think every wrestling fan should at least check it out one time. It's one thing to watch it on TV. It's another to experience it in person. I didn't really understand until I was there. I mean, I'd heard it, but it's one thing to hear it and others see it.
Yeah.
That, Lucha Libre is a part of the culture in Mexico in a way that professional wrestling in America it's not.
Right.
So, the audience had every demographic represented. I saw young, old, male, female, grandparents with their kids. That was represented not only in the ring, but in the crowd. And during the main event, I saw people crying, people praying, people cheering, people booing, people screaming. It was an experience, man. I really loved it. I enjoyed it so much. I'm going to make plans to go to Mexico City to see it again next year. It was something else, man. I really enjoyed it.
How are your host treated you well, it seemed like?
Fantastic. I had a translator with me because fortunately I've still got to learn a little Spanish, but I'm going to go back a little more fluid than I was this time. How about that?
Oh yeah. Well,
oh yeah.
There you go.
I'm already looking to get a tutor here in Huntsville and learn me a little Spanish.
That's what you need. You need a goddamn Spanish tutor in Huntsville.
Yes.
You'll be speaking Spanish with an
Southern
accent.
Yeah. Why not?
Oh, well, that's exactly right. Why not?
It was fantastic though. Sincerely. I didn't know what to expect. I'd been all over Mexico, but like tourist traps, Jim. I've been to Acapulco and Cabo and Cozumel and Cancun and, all of if you can go vacation there, and be on the water. I've probably done it in Mexico, but I've never been to Mexico City. And I didn't really have a frame of reference that it's the 5th largest city in the world. It's like bigger than New York. Being a hillbilly from Alabama, New York's supposed to be the biggest city. Well, it is not. Turns out I guess Tokyo's number 1, and I can check that off the box because I went to a Wrestle Kingdom. But now I can check off Mexico City because I went to Triple Mania. So fantastic experience. Can't recommend it enough. And congratulations, by the way, one more time to stupid ass Jeff Jarrett and the damn Tennessee Volunteers. What a hell of a game that was. Yeah. Jim, I know you had a chance to watch it. Maybe the most exciting game of the year so far, huh?
Yeah, I think so. It was a fun game, and I love the pageantry of college football is just unique. I'm not dissing the NFL because I'm a football fan. I enjoy the NFL. I watch it every week. I'm a Jags fan, obviously. I got free merch. So you see, wherever it is, there it is. free merch, and but they're my local team, and I'll be going to the Jags and the Giants game on Sunday, thanks to Tony Khan and AEW. He's such a nice. He wants us to support all that we want to support, and so he provides a suite there at TIAA Bank Stadium, and so we get we have some hot dogs and some tailgate snacks, normal stuff, and get to watch the game in the suite. It's great. So I'll be doing that on Sunday for sure. But back to your game, you could only hope that the Giants and the Jaguars have a game that even closely resembles the excitement and unpredictability of the Vols and the Jags. I was pulling for the Jags, the Vols and the Crimson Tide. I was pulling for the Crimson Tide because of you, quite frankly.
Well, I appreciate that.
And I'm a big Nick Saban fan. I like his swagger and his personality and his track record.
Right.
Say what you want to about him. He may be arrogant. He may be this. He may be that. He may not fit your flavor profile. But the son of a bitch can coach football.
Oh, yeah, you can.
So sometimes I just wonder, you could answer this better than me. Is he so hard-edged as he appears to be at times that it makes him hard? It makes it more challenging to keep good assistants?
Oh, no. It doesn't make it. He is the rehabilitation coach. You take a look at any coach, look at Sarkisian, for example. When he brought him in, man, Sarkisian was considered untouchable. Maybe he had a drinking problem, but he had flamed out a few times and nobody wanted to mess with him. And of course he comes and carries a clipboard for Nick Saban. And next thing you know, he's got a big time job. That's the story that's happened over and over and over. And even when it's not a good fit, he will make sure to make some calls and try to get that guy a really good place to land. So yeah, any coach who is going to be in the coaching carousel because they got cut loose at the end of this season, 50-50 shot they wind up with Nick Saban. And if they do, 100% shot, they go get a big paying job when they're finished. So
yeah,
that's what he's done very quietly.
Yeah, he's done a good job of that. A real good job. My friend, the head coach at the Jags here about 2 or 3 years ago, went there as the offensive line coach.
Yeah.
And what a swell guy he is. I know the Jags had to fire him, but he did get the job done, and he'll be the first to tell you that. But a good dude. And so 1 year in Saban's detox, so to speak.
Yeah.
He got the job as the offensive line coach of the Saints. So he's right back in the league.
Yep.
Right back earning a paycheck and coaching the position that he played and he's good at. So I'm a big booster of that whole system that Saban's doing. And it's good to hear you confirm what I hoped would be true, that he's the coach whisperer.
Yes, he is. He is. And he could see just all over the league, not just in the NCAA, but in the NFL, his fingerprints are on so many coaches. And
yeah,
I feel like we should go ahead and talk about last night, man. What a big night it was. We saw NXT and AEW go head to head again for the first time in a long time. Of course, NXT acquiesced and moved to Tuesdays a long time ago, but now because of the, traditional sporting events, AEW found themselves in a rare Tuesday night Dynamite, and they loaded up, man. Title Tuesday. We started with a banger with the Lucha Bros and Pac, and really fun show, and then pretty scary moment at the end of the day. What have you heard about Hangman Adam Page?
Pardon me. He's been released from the hospital. They get released late last night or early Wednesday morning, depending on how you want to address your clock situation. There in Cincinnati, diagnosed per a AEW news release in the middle of the night, which is when they got the info, that he has a concussion. Now, as pertinent and as prevalent as concussions are in sports, my God, somebody's down every week in the NFL.
That's right.
I mean, it's almost like the announcers say it now without any keen sense of urgency because it's not unique anymore.
Yeah.
Guys getting their quote unquote bell rung too often. and I think you'll see changes in helmets, and I don't know how much more they could tweak the damn rules.
Right.
The NFL's rule situation right now is a little bit dicey, but in any event, the care of and the safety of the athlete is number one priority. Same thing in wrestling, AEW or wherever. So they took him to the hospital, Hangman Adam Page, and via ambulance, and then he got thoroughly evaluated, in good hands. Doctors are ready, and it was all cool. And then he got released because they couldn't do anything for him. He's in that concussion protocol, and Conrad, I'm not really sure what concussion protocol means.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has different meanings for different teams, different
Sure.
leagues, maybe. I'm not sure. But I'm glad that he's, pardon me, I'm glad that he's been released. That allowed him to go home, allowed him to get treatment, medical care with people that he's familiar with. He can be home every day for a while, and that's probably not going to hurt him. But they had Moxley, and he had a hard, you'd think in this kind of, I guess, tongue in cheek, you'd think they were pissed off at each other because they beat the shit out of each other. That Mox and Page. I love their intensity.
Yes,
they're laying shit in, man, that a lot of talents will kind of cringe at. Say, like somebody said, I don't want chops. I've heard that before. When they work with Flair, don't chop me. Shit. Yeah, right. Well, you get that done. Well, good. You ought to go try to negotiate peace with Russia and the Ukraine, because he's going to do his chops.
Yes, he is.
It's part of his gig.
Yeah.
That's just part of his material. So I thought that they had a hell of a match going until the end, and it ended so abruptly that it really did take the wind out of the sails, because all of a sudden it's over.
Right.
They're working into the last moments of the last segment of the show. This is when you got to get your business done and cook your biscuits and just get ready to eat. But it never got that far. And I thought they handled it uniquely. You're doing live television, so you got to think on your feet.
Yes, sir.
That's why they did the elongated on camera. I think maybe if JR had any I don't know, could have helped in any area, it might have been that, navigating that, because I've done a lot of this live stuff that you don't want to talk about things, and how do you address it, and how do you sync it up and soundbite it and all that good stuff. So I thought that was a good. I thought they had a hell of a main event rolling until the unfortunate accident toward the end. But I'm with you. The Tony Khan's smart in as much as how he starts the show. And I thought that, with you, that 6-man tag to start the show, I'm a big fan of Pac. Pac. I mean, call him Pac. So Pac is one of my favorite talents.
Yes.
So golly, you got him and the Lucha Bros. Jesus Christ, Conrad, that's about as good a 6-man team as you could ever find.
Agree.
Come on. And then their adversaries had a lot to live up to, and some thought they might win it and all that stuff. Good. They're who the hell they wrestled? I know Orange Cassidy.
The Best
Chuck
Friends.
Taylor.
Yeah.
Best Friends. Yeah. That's what was missing this morning, among other things, in my mind. So I thought that was a hell of a start, and they set the pace, they set the tone. And the old Eddie Guerrero story back in the day, he's pissed because he had to be the opening match at a major pay-per-view. Might have been a WrestleMania, I'm not sure. Can't remember, but he's on the opening match of a major at WWE pay-per-view. And Eddie the Giant came out in him because he was pissed off. He thought it was a diss. He thought it was just, how do I deserve being the opener? Well, because here's how we position what the opener needs to fulfill. It needs to set the tone for every other swinging yin yang on the card. So I said to him, what I'd do if I were you, of course, I was half-assed tongue-in-cheeking it, because you never know with Eddie.
Right.
I said, I walk back through the gorilla position when the match is over. I stand there for a second, get everybody's attention. I look around and I look Vince right in the eye and I say, have them follow that. Follow that. And I said, Eddie, that's exactly what we want. You set the pace. You let these guys know this is how you start a show, and this is how you have a match on this level. So it eased the burden a little bit. And then when he came back through, and I wasn't there, but according to folklore, he did say something along those lines, and he looked greatly relieved that he had accomplished what he needed to accomplish.
That's great.
One of the reasons you love Eddie. I thought that kind of the show had a lot of real high spot moments. I thought the women on the show represented themselves extremely well. I thought the physicality in all the women's escapades was good, and it seems like with I kind of got lost at the end of the Saraya match. Her coming out to make the save was outstanding. It was very well timed, and she's over.
Oh yeah.
I mean, 3 TVs, she's over.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, and how she proceeds in the storyline business is exciting to forecast. But she's over. But I didn't. She faded away. She left at the end. Did you understand that? Did you remember? You know what I'm talking about? Because it seemed like she was there. She made the save. They ran away from the ring to go do something, and I never knew where they went.
Yeah, I think they're leaving it open ended. They want to keep us guessing, but I'm glad we're no longer guessing about Hangman. I don't know if you saw, but Chris Nowinski, who's been really critical in our as a community learning and understanding more about CTE, had a comment on Twitter last night, sending positive thoughts to Hangman. This was not a high risk move. Something went wrong. Referee Paul Turner is trained to recognize a hashtag concussion or a possible neck injury and stop the match. Doc Samson was ringside in there in seconds, and it gives us the best chance for a good outcome. It really, back in the old days, I don't know that would have happened, but no. I'm glad we've gotten better and we've grown as a society and a community. And I thought they handled it as best they could, but you're right. It was a tough spot, and it really sort of, I don't know. It took the bloom off the rose for the show for me. I was super fired up about it, but when it was over with, I was a little bit like, man, I hope he's okay. And I was less excited about the show, but them's the breaks when it's a high risk environment like this. Yeah,
it is. And it's things that we don't want to talk about because it's again, affects player safety.
Yes.
Wrestler safety.
Yes.
And who wants to talk about that? You're right. We were on a buzz and on a roll. And then all of a sudden, the match is over. But Turner did the right thing, stopping it as quickly as you hear me on my commentary. Some of that just commentary wrestlers speak,
right, or
announcers speak. That the number one priority of these referees is player safety. In the story,
yeah,
it's not it's not if you caught them passing the knucks,
right.
It's the fact are these guys okay,
right.
And nowadays, in the style of pro wrestling, where exaggerated high risk bumps are more in vogue, you're going to see more opportunities for that to occur. I also liked Jericho and
Dalton
Castle was really eye opening. I thought it was good, really good. Jericho's in a sincere role, and it's cool that I saw where he signed a new 5-year deal. Or no, was it 5 or?
I think it's 3. I think it's 3.
So 2025 or something like that. So it's good for him. It shows you can get job promotions past 50.
I don't know if it's so I don't know. I'm not asking for any details, but there's rumor and innuendo that Ring of Honor might be getting a fresh paint of coat, as Bruce would say. There's lots of talk that there may be a new weekly Ring of Honor show, and a little more buzz that it might be happening on an OTT, and a little more buzz that it might be on HBO Max. And I know nothing. I'm just reading the rumor and the news. But I'm excited to see guys like Dalton Castle getting an opportunity. You saw a little bit of an interaction with Jerry Lynn and Ian Riccaboni, and it's fun to think about, especially when you see that little package of Jericho saying he wants to take out every Ring of Honor champion. What a new Ring of Honor weekly show might look like. So I, for one, am crossing my fingers about that. And
me too. It gives guys opportunity.
Yes.
So instead of fans doing a deep dive on this topic, don't go there. well, they got to take care of this and they got to fix that. And I need more continuity in the refereeing or whatever the hell. So whatever the topic of the day is, the bottom line, folks, is this. If this proceeds as we assume it might, then you got wrestlers that found work.
Yeah.
That didn't have work.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be making money that they weren't making. They're going to be able to more easily buy their groceries or pay their mortgage or whatever. That's what interests me.
Yes.
And it's not, well, what are they going to do about this? And, I don't want to talk about when we talk about referee shirts or referee shoes, something else is a waste of our space.
Jim, I know you don't normally, but I'm curious, since it wasn't sort of a throwback, did you catch any of NXT last night? Did you flip it all and see any?
I did not, and I'm being very honest. And that's not me.
Being
protesting.
a homer. Yeah.
No. But I'm going to support people that pay me.
Of course, why not? Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's kind of a logical thing you might want to do. Support your employer, and that's how I look. That's how I work anyway. So for what that's worth. But I did not, and now I may go back and catch some clips.
Right.
Probably how I will look at it, just in real succinct form. Did you see some of it?
Well, I have to admit, I haven't watched nearly as much NXT as I have AEW. I've probably lifetime in this more modern version since AEW's been around. I've maybe seen 5 hours of NXT total. So I didn't watch the whole show last night, but what I was curious to see is I heard that over the weekend, Rhea Ripley was back in action. She's been out of the ring for a few months, and I wanted to take a look. And man, I'm just so impressed with her. Every time I see her, I'm just more and more convinced she is going to be the future of the ladies division over there. She just has such a presence. The camera loves her. I think she's got money written all over her, man. I'm a big Rhea Ripley fan.
I can't disagree with that whatsoever. Yeah. She's got an impressive look.
Yeah.
And she's been very smart on how her TV appearance, her TV attire, her TV look is perceived.
She looks like a star.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's big.
Yeah.
Statuesque. She's sorry. I'm guessing she might be close to 6 feet. Am I right? Somewhere on that.
You got to think, yeah, she's in the high 5s or low 6s. I mean, she just presents herself like a ladies wrestling champion. Like, it's a little old school and I love it.
Yeah, me too. I think she's certainly done a good job for those guys, and good for her. And these kids come from another country. They've been lifelong fans. They finally make it to a paying job on American television. Good for them. I think that's a success story.
No doubt about it.
and one that we should all enjoy. So Jericho and Castle, I thought was really good. I was quasi familiar with Dalton Castle's work, but I don't think I've ever worked in the same company with him at the same time, which would give me more ammunition to build my file on him, so to speak.
Yeah.
But he's a good hand.
Oh, and a great look and a great gimmick. And a few years ago, I think a lot of people thought, man, he's gonna be a WWE guy. Thankfully, it worked out the way it did, and maybe he's gonna get a big opportunity here with whatever is next for Ring of Honor. But we know what's next for us is talking about today's topic. We're going back 20 years to talk about the No Mercy show from 2002. But before we get there, Jim, I want to talk about our 2 most recent episodes here. We covered Eddie Guerrero, and then we did Ask JR Anything. I don't know about you, Jim, but I just got flooded with positive feedback. It seems like folks really enjoyed the last couple of episodes here at Grillin' JR.
Yeah, it does, and I appreciate it. You and I both appreciate the feedback. Positive feedback's always welcomed. But we had great subject matter. We had good questions from the fan base too, so that was cool. I appreciate that. I thought you and I had 2 really good shows, and so we'll have another one here today, obviously. But on a pay-per-view was not really that great. Start to top, it had moments of memorable moments, but only a handful.
Yeah,
in my opinion, and so we'll talk about that. It's where a card that looks amazing on paper does not deliver. That's my take on that deal. On the show in general. because it did have some hellacious matches on it and some amazing moments. We'll talk about those because it's very obvious what we're gonna, what's the stars of the show. But it was just not it didn't deliver like I thought it should have. I had high expectations for it and it kind of let me down.
It's, we know something that will never let you down, Jim, and that's our friends at Manscaped. You can cue that haunted music right now. Michael Myers sure is scary, but the last thing you need is to be hairy this Halloween.
Oh, look at this.
Luckily, our friends at Manscaped have launched their 4th generation performance package to make sure that your pumpkins get the ultimate carving experience on this spooky day. Turn your bite-sized treat into a king-size candy and join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the promo code Jim Ross. Make the right call this spooky season. It's trick or trim. Maybe you've had a little trimming experience that turned into a Freddy Krueger film. Well, luckily, Manscaped is here to save the day and make sure that you're feeling the best inside your costume. We're talking about the Performance Package 4.0. It's the holy grail of men's grooming items. We've got everything you need to upgrade your grooming routine. It's a full moon out and there's a werewolf in your pants and he's howling, and it's time for you to tackle that problem with the Lawnmower 4.0. They've got the cutting edge ceramic blades that are going to make sure that you are nick and, cut free. You know what we're talking about. You don't want it to look like CSI Oklahoma down yonder. Well, they've got advanced skin safe technology in this Lawnmower 4.0. It's easily the greatest ball trimmer on the planet. And did I mention it's waterproof too? So you can use it in or out of the shower. Also in this Performance Package 4.0 is the Weed Whacker. This is amazing for your nose and ear hair trimming. And if you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s, or you know what we're talking about, you need a little help there. We all do. They've got proprietary skin safe technology. It's going to help you prevent those nicks and snags and tugs in your delicate ear and nose holes, because man, if you're not careful, you'll get a bunch of watery eyes and maybe embarrass yourself. Not with the Weed Whacker. I have it and I love it. Let me tell you about their liquid formulations from Manscaped too. Tony Schiavone developed a reputation in the Nitro era for having the stinkiest balls in wrestling. Thankfully, these days, he's got the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant. And Eric Bischoff is so old that whenever he sits on the toilet, his boys go swimming. Not anymore. The Crop Reviver Ball Toner, it's getting them a little tighter. All right. Wow. They got the new Body Buffer from Manscaped too. It's 100% antibacterial body scrubber. It's just what you need to be fresh and clean this Halloween. They even threw in some Manscaped boxers, the Shed travel bag, which JR's admitted here on the show. I
take it with me on every television.
How about that?
Yes, sir.
So if you're looking like Wolverine and you haven't cut your nails recently, be sure to check out the Shears 2.0 nail kit. Something for everybody here. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code Jim Ross at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code Jim Ross at manscaped.com. Say trick or treat to your beautiful new Halloweeny with Manscaped.
God damn. Who writes this stuff?
Manscaped.com. Come on. Jim Ross is the code. Get it hooked up. And we're talking today. We've just recently covered SummerSlam 02, where Shawn Michaels returns to defeat Triple H. Brock Lesnar becomes the youngest WWE champion by defeating The Rock. It really is the beginning of the Brock Lesnar era. Rock's out of town after SummerSlam. He's going to work on some movies and things. But we do get to feature the hardcore title being unified with the Intercontinental title when Rob Van Dam defeats Tommy Dreamer. I guess with Rob Van Dam here, and he can do the hardcore style and the more traditional style, and it's still fun and exciting, he's as good as anybody to help retire that hardcore title, huh?
Oh, yeah. Van Dam's value to WWE, at least when I was there, is never been properly acknowledged.
Right.
He's just one of the best there was ever. And he had a unique style. He brought his own game to the formula. And that's something a lot of wrestlers need to understand. You got to create your own image, and you got to create your own persona. And Rob did that very, very well, very successfully. So we were glad we had him. And of course, probably no one on the card, Conrad, that participated on this card did that card mean more than did to Tommy Dreamer, because Dreamer was an ECW guy, and he listened to Busted Open. He's on there several days a week with Dave LaGreca and Bubba and all those dudes. And I'm a regular listener to their show, thanks to their app. And so they do a good job representing pro wrestling business. So Tommy, he loves every opportunity. He's an old school guy. Look at that one more hot tag. So I was that match interested me because I knew both talents had something in their mind that they needed to prove. Did they really need to prove anything? Probably not.
Right.
But they both enjoyed their experience, and because of that, it made me happy. They got booked, they had a good match, they got exposure, they got paid. They got paid.
Yes, sir. It's also announced that Brock is going to be moving exclusively to SmackDown, and there's also a lot going on with the Un-Americans. Here's a report from the Observer. The Un-Americans threatened to burn the flag. Ross and Lawler seemed like the only two in the building really taking that threat seriously, and they heard they were worried about security going out there for the angle. They first played Kane's music, but he never came out. Booker and Goldust went to make the save, but they were unsuccessful and got beaten down. Then Kane, looking different, made the save. Kane chokeslammed everyone, leading to him doing a Kane-a-Rooney. There was something I couldn't understand about the mood and seriousness when you go from saving the American flag in New York to doing a spin-a-Rooney. There was a definite conflict between McMahon and the Un-Americans regarding the angle at MSG. It wasn't as much as they didn't want to do the burning the flag angle, but they wanted proper security. Others took it as they were lucky to be put in a potential heat-getting angle, and they're wary of getting too much heat, and that the heels should strive for the most heat possible and look at this as their big opportunity. Now, I just want to add context. This is about a year after 9/11. So any sort of talk of burning the American flag in New York City about a year after 9/11, I could see why they would be hesitant. But at the same time, I know that, well, this is sort of old school wrestling. Where did you land on that?
It was a wrong time. Timing was bad.
Yeah.
I can't justify doing it, no matter if it's part of the nomenclature of pro wrestling. I was doing commentary when Eddie Gilbert covered the big cowboy in Tulsa with a Russian flag. And that was absolutely off the hook. Crowd went crazy. They were angry. It was just like a hostile takeover. Mm-hmm. And how can you do that to the cowboy type thing? So I've experienced it kind of in that respect. But I just thought because it was New York, it was a year after 9/11, and that the wounds had not even come close to starting to heal. They still haven't.
Right.
I just thought it was bad timing. I wouldn't even considered it. It'd have been that. No, we're not doing that. Next type thing.
Kind of interesting to see what's going on here because it's clear we're trying to push SmackDown. We mentioned that Brock Lesnar is now signed exclusively to SmackDown. Well, The Undertaker is going to get moved to SmackDown too. As a reminder, Rock and Hogan are both out of here. So we're probably looking for a little star power here. In response, Raw no longer has a world championship because now, well, Brock Lesnar is exclusive for SmackDown. So Eric Bischoff just rehashes the old WCW big gold belt and simply just gives it to Triple H and calls him the new world heavyweight champion for Raw. That's always been weird for me, man. I'll never forget that scene.
Me too.
I just don't listen. I know that it's entertainment and I shouldn't care, but it just felt a little weird. We're just going to create a new title and give it to a guy. There's no tournament. How did that strike Jim Ross back then?
It was very untraditional.
Yeah.
Handing over a gift. The only time it might work is if you had a red hot heel that giving the championship to might increase their heat and their profile. But in general, it's not a good idea. Triple H should have gotten a ring, and it wasn't his call.
Right.
But to see him wrestle was always a bonus to me. And because at that point in time, he was really getting to be an amazing heel. He'd followed Vince gave him the lead in, Vince gave him the hot tag, so to speak. And Triple H's association with Vince certainly didn't hurt Triple H's heel persona. but I would never have thought about it. I mean, if I was in a production meeting or a creative meeting, more specifically, I would have said, I'm passing on that idea. I don't like it. I just think it's too many negative thoughts it's going to conjure up. And you're still, I mean, you got families that are still looking for their loved ones. I mean, hell, they hadn't found everybody. So I just didn't think it made any sense, Conrad. I too much. That's like Kane doing the Kane or Rooney, my ass.
Yeah, shouldn't happen.
Oh no. That's where sports entertainment and pro wrestling have a conflict sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You got this monster, and you built him, and he's over. He's a Hall of Fame guy, but now we're going to have him start doing the Kane or Rooney. Hell, I did a spin a Rooney one time. It was hideous. It was. I was surprised my back didn't go out or something. So, but yeah, I thought the Kane thing was ill-placed, and to even consider the 9/11 connotations was not even a consideration for me. Would never have gone there.
Let's also talk about what's next for Billy and Chuck. They're going to have their commitment ceremony over on SmackDown. This was a really big deal. It got some mainstream coverage. It got everybody talking. How are they going to do this? What is the payoff going to be? And we know it winds up being one of the more memorable segments in SmackDown history and one of the most important things of Eric Bischoff's whole career. I thought Bischoff did a great job in the reveal that he was in fact the priest. Had to sit in the makeup chair forever and a day.
Yeah.
Here comes 3-minute warning. Rosie and Jamal are going to beat up Billy and Chuck, and even Stephanie gets hit with the Samoan drop. And I know that it's easy for folks to poke fun at that creative, but the reveal of Eric Bischoff, boy, that was really well done, was it not?
Absolutely. Yeah. Eric did a hell of a job on that casting, shall we, booking. Booking, casting are kind of synonymous. That's what it is, really. You're getting cast in a fictional role, and I thought that Eric did a phenomenal job in that role, and the makeup people did even better. I mean, god dang, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know.
That's right.
And so Eric pulled that off expertly, no doubt. And I enjoy his podcast on here on the network is really good. Eric keeps reinventing himself. He kind of reminds me of Chris Jericho. Talking about Jericho signing a new deal. He just keeps reinventing himself and making himself fit the landscape of broadcasting. So I'm a big fan of Eric's podcast, 83 Weeks. It doesn't bother me to call it 83 Weeks. They beat our ass. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
I didn't like Oklahoma getting beat by Texas 49-0 either, but it happened. It happened. Boy, did JBL do a promo. They were in Oklahoma City on Monday night. I didn't know that. And I started getting all these tweets and things. Man, JBL's tearing you up tonight on TV. Well, I knew that they were not going to mention my name on television.
Right, of course not.
That ain't going to happen. But the connotations on where it was directed to, and maybe in my pea brain, or maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that's a nice little, well, you can guarantee that my name came up when they were talking about it, because, well, this will piss JR off.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it didn't. JBL delivered the goods, man. He did a hell of a job. He's a great promo guy. We sang his praises here on this show on many occasions, but we just have that, he has that Dick Murdoch-like Texas allegiance. And, sometimes it's hard to take because he can be very good at what he does. And he was very good in that promo. I thought it was good. How he's going to do with Baron Corbin, I don't know. I think Baron Corbin's missing a piece here or there, someplace, I'm not sure. But maybe the answer to that missing piece is JBL. We'll find out.
He delivered that promo wearing my pants. I don't know if you noticed that or not. The most ill-fitting John Cena 2002 suit of all time. So let's talk about some more bad creative. They're focusing on some silly, maybe ratings focused segments, what they think will pop a rating.
Right.
They start to do something called HLA, which stands for Hot Lesbian Action. Now they're doing that because Raw is drawing its lowest ratings in over 4 years here in the fall of 2002. And that goes back to when there were 2 shows on Monday night. I understand that, desperate times call for desperate measures, but even back then I thought, I don't know if they should be doing this. Hot lesbian action. What do you think of that creative?
No, it'd been another one. It would have been another shortened creative meeting.
Yeah.
Here's what we want to do. My vote would have been no.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of, there's certain things in wrestling that creatively somebody can say, well, all's fair in love and war. All's fair in this. It's all just wrestling. Well, you still got to have some sort of integrity. You still got to have some sort of continuity, creative continuity. And if you don't, it's like saying, I often wondered this in response to your question. How does a mom and dad explain to a kid what the hell HLN is? And Daddy, what's a lesbian? Well, if I got an 8 or 10-year-old kid, I might not be ready to talk to them about the birds and the bees and lesbians.
Yes.
I'm not an anti-lesbian. Don't get me wrong. I think I've been a lesbian all my whole life. Because I do like women, but that's not a shocker. But it just didn't fit. We're trying so hard to emphasize the entertainment aspect of sports entertainment and de-emphasize the sports side of this whole equation. So I wasn't a big fan of it. This, like I said, I had high hopes in the show. I thought it was going to be really good. I was hoping so. I was ready for it. It just did not deliver for me for some of these reasons we're already talking about. Just some of them just aren't even good considerations. Don't go there.
Well, here's another piece of interesting creative. William Regal is put with the Un-Americans. This is from the Observer. Regarding the heat with the Un-Americans as a whole, it's a bunch of small things. Vince wanted Test, Christian, and Storm to all dress the same and have the same look like an 80s WWF tag team would have done. He also wanted them to work a more heelish style, meaning less big offensive moves, mainly punches and kicks and big bumps for the faces' comebacks. And the day after SummerSlam, when Vince was already in a bad mood over the situation with The Rock, he told Test and Christian that he wanted all three to start wearing similar tights and look the same. He told them since Lance can't grow his hair to look like theirs in just 1 week, they need to cut their hair like Lance. And as you can see, neither did it. There was also minor problems over the incident that night in MSG, where they wanted more security because of the flag burning angle. There's been more than one person in the office remarked that they are guys because of their gimmick who've been given a golden opportunity, and the idea that they didn't want to get too much heat is not a good sign. No, there's also an issue with some of the older agents, and if you understand their background and what wrestling was in their heelish days, you would not understand where they were coming from, or you would understand where they were coming from, and whether or not you'd agree or not, didn't exactly like the idea of Test getting the elective cosmetic surgery in the middle of a push program that caused him to miss a few weeks, and there are no plans to break them up, and they likely put Regal in the group to serve as the leader. So the Un-Americans, man, it seems like it's a decent piece of creative, but for whatever reason, we can't get everybody on the same page. Is that fair to say?
That's exactly, you hit the nail on the head. Everybody wasn't on board.
Yeah.
And Test, God bless his soul, thought he was a lot better than he was. He had unlimited potential based on his look. 6'5", 6'6", big blonde guy and pretty jacked up. But he wasn't totally committed, and he overstated his value, I think. So, but I'm like some of those old school guys. They don't surprise you. You get this opportunity, man, roll with it, go for it. And so anyway, it's just, I was kind of disappointed in how that was presented. And it wasn't Lance Storm was up for anything, seemed to me like. But of course, his hair wasn't involved. We ought to have our hair fixed. Goddamn, the men in wrestling today spend as much time in front of a mirror dealing with their hair and their watered down look and their 8,000 tattoos. You should be worried about that. Don't worry about your look is good. But if you're going to go against Vince's mandate, and so what you're doing, you're pissing on his vision. That's how he saw it. So if you're going to piss on my vision, I'm going to piss on your career.
Wow.
And that was the end of Edge. Essentially, he might have got another cup of coffee here, there, and yon, Conrad, but bottom line was he shot himself in both feet when he did that. Elective surgery, my ass.
So where Raw is struggling a little bit, SmackDown starts to flourish. It's featured more wrestling and really good wrestling. And this is where we start to hear about what's known as the SmackDown Six: Edge, Mysterio, Benoit, Angle, Eddie, and Chavo. Of course, Paul Heyman is sort of leading the writing on that show.
Yeah.
But house show attendance is down to half of what it was before the brand split. Let me explain. In March of 2002, the average was 8,565 fans per show. Now it's down to 4,170 per show. I know you're handling payoffs for a lot of these guys. I'm sure this is on your radar.
Yeah.
Did you think that there's a magic bullet to fix this, or did you lean into the, well, wrestling cyclical, we just got to ride it out?
Well, I believe the latter, pretty much, that it is cyclical. And if you're well structured and your company's strong, you ride it out until somebody gets hot, gets over. Getting over is really, really the name of the game. But I look, they loaded. WWE knew what they were doing with SmackDown in the sense that they bulked the brand up. They built that brand on Friday nights, and you got to believe that somewhere down the road you knew that something maybe was brewing big, like it has evolved to on Fox network television. Man, how do you not take care of that property? And they did, and I was excited about that. But they loaded that show up. And it was challenging for Lawler and I because, we weren't getting all the top talent anymore on Raw. Raw wasn't the automatic go-to. And I don't think that did us any favors. I think both could have been built, don't get me wrong. But to desecrate the roster of Raw was, I thought, unnecessary.
Let's do a quick rundown of some highlights from the Unforgiven pay-per-view in LA. You would see Triple H defeat Rob Van Dam to keep the world title. Trish would beat Molly Holly to win the women's championship. Rosie and Jamal would pick up a win over Billy and Chuck, with the stipulation that now Stephanie has to perform a little HLA. The quote-unquote ugly lesbian they brought out ended up being Rikishi, who took off his mask, beat up Bischoff, and gave him the stink face. So that's old school wrestling. Then we got Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker going to a double DQ in the main event for the title, and that, of course, sets up a Hell in a Cell for those two cats at No Mercy.
Yep.
And it's not a very memorable pay-per-view besides maybe the whole stink face to Bischoff piece of business. 300,000 buys here is what it does. And Randy Orton has moved over to Raw the night after Unforgiven. He's here as a baby face, but it seems like they're trying to shove him down the fans' throats on purpose. Maybe like they hope that the fans would turn on him. Orton gets injured pretty soon after with a shoulder injury, and it feels like his career maybe is getting derailed a little bit. Obviously, we've got big hopes for Randy Orton. We know now in hindsight, it more than worked out. Yep. But was there a time here in 2002 where you thought, man, I hope he can pull the nose up here, but it does feel like he's got quite a string of bad luck.
Yeah, bad breaks. Yeah. You're right. But nobody ever lost confidence in Randy's ability to be a big star. He was still young, Conrad. Golly.
Yeah.
Or when we're talking about this time, he was still in his 20s.
Yeah, he was.
I'm guessing. So nobody ever lost faith in Randy Orton. It's just that, you get some guys get snake bit, and injuries are something they can't control. And so all we had to do was be patient with Randy Orton, because we knew that he was a Hall of Fame guy. At least I did. I thought he was, I had to save his ass when Vince found out he was dishonorably discharged from the Marines.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. And Vince never served a minute at a time in the armed forces, but he was all, that was just his thing. One of his issues. So, but we thank God we didn't cut Randy short, and he's done pretty good with those guys since we signed him.
Yeah, I think so. I think it worked out. Hey, so talk to me a little bit about Pete Rose. You're going to dust him off, bring him back for the No Mercy TV commercial, sort of rekindling his feud with Kane. I really always enjoyed his little cameos here and there. I know you're an old school baseball guy. How was Pete?
Yeah. Great. He was fun to see. He genuinely had a good time. Pete was one of the boys.
Yeah.
Pete Rose deserved and belonged in a locker room. And the talents who grew up that were baseball fans, how do you not respect and idolize to some degree Pete Rose?
Right.
He should be in the Hall of Fame. And of course, it's the gambling thing, the holier than thou authorities that be in Major League Baseball, or someday when he goes in the Hall of Fame, which I still believe he will, when some of these old sticks in the mud move on. But everybody loved to see Pete. He was fun in catering, Conrad. He was fun backstage. He told great baseball stories. He just was, I remember him telling the story of going someplace in like a USO tour or something with Joe DiMaggio. They went into a more of a jungle-like area, and it was very secluded. And so they took showers in the jungle. It's some kind of makeshift thing you might see on an old Tarzan show where the water flew in. And Pete told the story about that Joe DiMaggio had the biggest penis he'd ever seen in his life.
Wow.
He said, and I've been in a lot of locker rooms. He said it was scary. And Pete, he sizzled it up a lot more, but it captivated the boys. Penis humor is easy to translate.
It's over.
Yeah. So, but he was fun to be around, and I don't remember. He always did exactly what he was supposed to do, and you got a guy coming off the bench, no pun intended, and getting in the ring to do a tombstone pile driver. It's not like saying we want you to do an arm drag.
Right.
Or I'm going to do a side headlock takeover on you. We're going to go the late innings. We're going to do a walk off. And that's what we did with Pete. He did a walk off every time he was on, and it was always fun. I'll never forget the Bill Buckner stuff he did.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And what great timing.
Yes.
What great comedic timing. And then he had the balls to say, yeah, I'll do the tombstone.
Yeah.
What is a tombstone? He didn't even know what a tombstone was. But he was a fun guy to be around, and hey, he's doing a pretty good deal right now. He's making a living signing his name in Vegas.
A lot of money, by the way.
Yep.
He's still as over as ever. And of course, we were always thinking about him and Kane. And speaking of Kane, he and Hurricane win the tag titles from Lance Storm and Christian. And then there's a really hot SmackDown show on September 26th from San Diego. A couple of outstanding matches. We get Rey Mysterio beating Benoit and Angle in the main event of a triple threat. And Meltzer would even say that Vince was against putting Mysterio in the main event, but after he heard the hometown crowd reaction for Rey, he changed his mind. It does feel like Vince really had to come around and, for lack of a better word, be sold on the idea of doing this much with Rey Mysterio, no?
Yeah, I think so. Vince, the thing that we forget, and guys like you that wear multiple hats and run their own show, can understand it probably better than most. Vince had so much on his plate. I mean, we go from the old worn out illustration of he signed off on all the t-shirt designs, something to that level. But he had a lot of projects like that on his plate. So he was extremely busy. And I think that in another place and time, he would have had a lot more awareness of what's on the TV. Like we've said here before, I don't remember him ever one time in the 26 years that I worked for him asking me, boy, that was a good WCW show this week, right? He ain't going to watch the other wrestling.
Right.
I don't think he watched WWE wrestling unless he was there producing it. So I think that hurt him a little bit, because for not to be aware that we have a Hispanic market in San Diego. Rey lives in San Diego. He's a folk hero down there to all races, all sizes. And it slipped by Vince. And things like that would not have slipped by Vince if he had less items on his plate to deal with. So I think that's kind of where that came from. But, Rey Mysterio to give him a shine in San Diego was complete no-brainer.
Let's keep it moving here and talk about the other show stealing match here. It's Edge pinning Eddie Guerrero in a no DQ match. They're using a ladder a lot. It does feel as if SmackDown has the better show. Now there's no debate. Raw is still the A show, but it feels like SmackDown's got more wrestling and, well, Raw has more hot lesbian action.
Correct.
I know part of you really likes feeling like you're on the A team of Monday Night Raw here, but part of you probably has to think, damn, can I call some of those matches? Cause that's a little more your speed, is it not?
It was a little bit unique casting, but Lawler and I were so established on Raw that we were part of the brand.
That's right.
For better or for worse. And I'm not trying to break my arm patting myself on the back, but we were a comfortable fit and had been for years and years through the glory years and the AEW, the Attitude Era. So, but it was hard when you're a wrestling guy like me. You want to call wrestling matches and not describe or narrate hot lesbian action. If hot lesbian action had gotten over, and maybe I'd have a different feel for it, but I just thought it was just pure and simple a waste of time.
Man, that's funny because I sure did think hot lesbian action was always over for you. Yeah, let's keep going. It's determined that SmackDown needs its own tag team titles. In your opinion, does having two sets of tag titles, especially in this era, dilute the tag titles a little bit? I mean, I understand that we're trying to create separate brands, but it's not as if the WWF has ever really been a tag team territory.
No.
So there's not a ton of big tag teams. There's not a ton of great tag teams. Sometimes it feels like they're just sort of thrown together. And now we've got a Raw set and a SmackDown set. Was this too many titles for you?
Well, if the brands had been strictly kept separate, no. If the title was exclusive to SmackDown, then cool. But it seemed like we were wandering all over the place. This show up here on Raw, then this guy may show up on SmackDown and without explanation, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not a big proponent of too many titles. You know, we've talked about that here. I think we devalue them. The more there are, the less they mean. Might be the best way to put this whole thing. And I'm a big believer that you can have too many titles. What do you focus on? You know, we added a title in AEW, the Atlantic Championship that
the All Atlantic,
All Atlantic, yeah. And I thought that Orange Cassidy and when was that match? Orange and Pac
last week.
Was that last week?
Yes, sir.
Wow, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, it does.
So I liked the I didn't like the our attempt at trying to be more entertainment than sports was not something I appealed to, and not just because it didn't fit my wheelhouse. But anyhow, it was what it was, and thank God we went. It seemed as we were in it and out of it with a blink of an eye. At least some decision makers recognize some many events. Well, I wanted this to work, but it ain't going to, and it didn't.
So the Un-Americans faction is broken up. Meltzer would have this to say. On the Un-Americans political situation, Regal, who was added to the group to provide it with stability, is well liked by management. He took Triple H under his wing, so to speak, when they were a tag team in WCW many years ago. Not to mention, he's considered as having a great wrestling mind and a student of the business, and he will always be kept strong. Test, who was thought to be the guy with the most upside potential, and this was originally supposed to be his breakout role, is now in the doghouse.
Right.
Besides being asked to cut his hair, they also wanted him to lose the long leather pants for more traditional ring attire, and when he didn't, they figured he wasn't worth investing in because he wasn't dedicated enough. There's a lot of people down on him because he believes his future is in acting. Christian has a little heat, but not like Test, and he'll probably end up where he was before the Un-Americans, which is nowhere. Storm had no heat, but right now has no role. At least as of this week, the plan was to drop the Un-Americans' name and gimmick. Who was down on them first, the agents or Vince?
Well, the agents probably told Vince that the kid didn't want to cut his hair or change his pants.
Yeah.
And then Vince got that information, and I'm sure that he had a sit down with Test. Again, Test believed in his own hype too much. He did have a great look, main event look, and all those things, but he wasn't a made man yet. He thought he was, unfortunately. And I liked Andrew. Andrew was. I remember the last time I talked to Andrew before they found him dead. We always had good conversations. We would kid each other about. He played football in high school in Canada, and so he would talk about sing the praises of Canadian American football. And I would laugh at his face almost, unfortunately. And but it was friendly fire, friendly conversation, friendly conversation. But it's just too bad he sunk his own ship. He imploded at sea, and he never was able to rebound.
Another change in championships on Raw is Kane defeating Jericho to win the IC title. Kane's now a double champion, and he's going to face Triple H at No Mercy. Of course, he's a tag champ too with Hurricane. But the IC title is going to be unified with the world title that night, and this retires the Intercontinental Championship after 23 years. So let's keep this in mind now. We just unified the hardcore title and the IC title when Tommy Dreamer lost the hardcore title to Rob Van Dam, and eventually Jericho has that Intercontinental title. Kane beats him for it. No more Intercontinental title. Now it's going to come back a year later.
Yeah.
But still, I can almost buy into the hardcore title was a fun idea for the time and place. The European title, well, sure, we didn't really do much with that. I could see that going away. But the Intercontinental title, man, this has decades of history here. This was clearly a mistake. We corrected a year later, but why are we, on the one hand, creating a new set of tag champs, but we're getting rid of the IC title? That's the one with all the history and lineage. I didn't get that.
I didn't either. I was totally shocked when I heard that we were going to, retire the championship. Didn't know why. It's not like it hadn't been around a while and established. A great name identity. Some of the greatest stars in pro wrestling history have been Intercontinental champions at one point in time. So it's a big surprise. Hey, by the way, we've passed over Regal here. You mentioned him. I didn't. He did a hell of a job. He and MJF's promo.
Fantastic.
Was as good as I've heard in years.
Yes, I agree.
In years. And that's going through the Attitude Era and the whole 9 yards. I was really, really proud of both guys. Regal's facial expressions are priceless. Sometimes he doesn't have to say one single word. You know exactly what he's thinking.
Yes.
And the lay of this land. But he's been a valuable asset, an addition to the AEW team. And I thought he helped make MJF, which is the goal. I mean, MJF has got the rocket ship tied to him, and one would think it'll just be a matter of time till he's the kingpin. But that's another story for another day. The match is booked now with Moxley and MJF, and I'm kind of glad that they did it this way because we now have a main event for the next pay-per-view, and if I'm not mistaken, and the right guys in the being chauffeured to the top, and which is good. You got to do that. Mm-hmm. So I thought that promo was absolute money, especially when you consider if your fans are listening today, they did it without a writer.
Yeah.
They didn't have a script. They didn't memorize their lines. You say this, you pause, I'll say that, then I'll pause, then we'll look at each other, then you blink, then I'll blink. Fuck. Is that it? Really? That's your instincts. So I just thought those guys did as good an in-ring promo as I can remember hearing. I'm sure I've heard others that impacted me as much, to some degree anyway. But God dang, Conrad, that was a piece of art. That was a historic promo that we'll look back on someday and say this was the launching pad that really got. Because I don't know if MJF's a babyface or a heel right now. Do you?
The fans were going nuts for him, man. They absolutely loved him, and it felt real. And those are always the promos that resonate with us, where they sort of blur the lines of reality, and we start to think, okay, well, now that's part of the show, and well, he's just kidding around. Oh, but this was real. And I felt that way during the MJF promo. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, me too. They could have done any better.
Yeah.
And again, I'm proud of both those guys. They both are students of the game, and Regal lending his experience and his instincts to it's not just MJF that Regal has helped. He helps a lot of guys. He's there early on TV day. He has workouts every time. He spends a lot of time with the talent, going over psychology and things of that nature. So William Regal is a valuable asset, in my opinion, to AEW, and helps us a lot. And, you know, being the point guy in one of the top factions, and a faction that really hasn't had a big push.
Yeah.
To one of your rumor and innuendo terms, big push. They don't seem like they've got a big push, but they're all over. And then they've gotten this Wheeler Yuta kid over. And then, of course, you got, you know, flawless Daniel Bryan, who's simply as good as I've seen, maybe ever. So it's interesting lineup, but that promo was a big deal, and those guys should be applauded for it.
Well, Jim, I want to give you a heads up real fast. There's a party in Nashville, and you're invited. Nashville's first of its kind live event is coming to Woolworth Theater, and believe me, you've never seen anything like this before. Shiners is the hottest new show in Nashville that blends Cirque, Broadway, and comedy into one electrifying production. It's located in downtown Nashville at the brand new Woolworth Theater. Shiners has a star-studded cast featuring Chuck Wicks and Laura Osnes, along with the most mind-blowing talent from the Cirque world. You can catch a live Shiners show at the Woolworth Theater on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. General admission and VIP tickets are on sale now at Shiners Nashville, or bring your crew and watch the show from your own VIP box. Enjoy some delicious signature cocktails and ice cold beer, all while you watch the show. You won't want to miss this if you live near or in Nashville, or maybe you're just headed there soon for fun. Get your tickets today for Shiners at shinersnashville.com.
Woo Wings, a virtual restaurant concept from the man himself, the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Enjoy the legendary flavors and world championship wings by ordering with your Uber Eats or Postmates app. Woo Wings is now open in Nashville, San Antonio, Jacksonville, Florida, as well as Huntsville and Tuscaloosa in Alabama, with many more locations coming soon. Try the only chicken wings worthy of carrying the name of the 16-time world heavyweight champion. Tell him, Nate.
Wings! Legendary flavors, world championship wings! Woo! Woo Wings! Yeah! Woo woo!
Let's talk about the first Raw Roulette show here. October 7th from Vegas. There's some interesting matches here. Triple H is going to hook it up with D'Lo Brown in a blindfold match. William Regal is going to wrestle Goldust in a Las Vegas Showgirl match. Those guys were up for anything. And Jerry Lawler defeats Steven Richards in a quote-unquote It's Legal in Nevada match. And Lawler then leaves with the Godfather's Ho Train. So you call the last match by yourself, which is a TLC match. And Meltzer would say it went 25 minutes and Kane won it alone, defeating Bubba Ray and Spike Dudley, Christian and Jericho, and RVD and Jeff Hardy to retain the tag titles for himself and Hurricane, who was beat up before the match by Triple H and Flair. And at the end of the Raw Roulette show, Triple H accuses Kane of murdering his girlfriend 10 years ago. There's been a lot said about this story. Of course, we're going to talk about the silliness to come, but let's first talk about the Raw Roulette show. This feels a little bit like the old spin the wheel, make the deal from WCW.
It was
a blindfold match, a showgirl match, the It's Legal in Nevada match. I know that sometimes it feels like WWE is a little desperate here, but that was some good creative stuff, man. I really dug this.
We were in a production meeting at 120 Hamilton, and to talk about that event, and we needed an attraction match. You know, that's what we're going to build this thing around. And Vince said, we need a name for this match. And it just popped in my head immediately. Raw Roulette.
Yes.
It brought everything together.
Yeah, it does.
Raw, Roulette, Vegas theme, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that was we got that meeting was over quick because we found the name, and then it was up to creative to come up with the right stipulations. Pardon me, and they did, and some were corny, some were outlandish, some were unbelievable, and some were good. But Raw Roulette had the magic to it, and I got lucky on that one. Just as far as giving us something to name, that just popped in my head, and Vince liked it right away, and so that portion of the creative discussion was over. The name had been established, and he liked it, which made me feel good, give me a little reprieve that day. So, but it was good. I always liked working in Vegas. You and I've had a lot of fun in Vegas together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. More to come, I'm sure, if I had to bet.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's talk about Katie Vick.
Do we have to?
Unfortunately, we're not going to talk about the segment just yet, but I'm curious when the ideas first pitched. So just to remind everybody, the way Kane was introduced is Paul Bearer would go on TV and yell at The Undertaker, "I know what you did. I know about your secret. I know you've got a brother." And so there's this secret that's out there. This feels like Turnabout's fair play. Now someone has a secret about Kane. We know what the silliness is going to be, but was that always the plan, or was there ever a decent idea that somehow we just lost our way?
I don't know. I don't recall any more decent ideas. Quite frankly, there may have been something that somebody said, well, that's not outlandish enough. That's not sensationalistic enough. But it was an attempt to become more entertainment. The entertainment side, for Raw anyway, the entertainment side of that show became the not the TLCs, so the HLAs and all that shit. And it was just hard to, Lawler and I did our best to make some sense out of it, or narrate it, or lay out. I found us laying out more than anything, because sometimes when you're not sure what to say, or an angle is just being introduced and you don't know how the audience is going to take it, yay or nay, you lay out. And a lot of announcers believe it's like a talent not getting their shit in. It's not about you, Mr. Announcer. It's not about you, JR. It's about the match. And can you narrate or lay out at the appropriate time to embellish what we're seeing? And some of that content was hard to lay out to establish what do you say sometimes?
Right.
The only thing that I will say about that stuff, it was different. It was unique. It was new. But none of those things were good. It wasn't good new, nothing. So this show is a great example of us getting way out of our lane, in my opinion.
Well, we try some other soap opera stuff on SmackDown. It's not just limited to Raw. And we're unbelievably going to pump it into the Brock Lesnar Undertaker feud. Lesnar and Heyman come out with a woman named Tracy, who claims that she had been having an affair with quote unquote Mark. Of course, that's the real life name of the Undertaker. And she apologizes to Sarah, the Undertaker's wife, because she didn't know he was married or a wrestler. Undertaker called his wife Sarah and told her he'd never even seen that woman before. And the Observer has this to say. Apparently the latest new direction of the company, based around a women's soap opera, was something Kevin Dunn sold Vince McMahon on, and Vince believes it can turn the company around. The belief was the Kane as a murderer angle will be a big hit. But now we're following it up with the Undertaker cheated on his pregnant wife, and it's kind of like overbooking angles, so that even if one were to get over, by doing so many, you're almost guaranteeing diluting them. Since they only know one way to go, Kane is a murderer went to Kane isn't a murderer, but is either a rapist or committed necrophilia because his semen was found in Katie Vick, the imaginary dead girl. This soap opera stuff, man. The Undertaker having to fend off infidelity charges on SmackDown. This is just, what are we doing?
You're saying that Mark Calloway is a total team player and will do whatever he is outline what he'll run the plays that are called.
Yes.
So I admire Mark for that, because that was a completely off the radar Undertaker feel. I didn't like it. I don't think he liked it, but everybody was trying to do their job. It's fans sit here and say, well, that was bad. That was bad. Pardon me. That's bad creative, JR. Tell me the story. Well, the story is we couldn't do anything about it. This is what the boss wanted to have on his TV show. And it was our job to acquiesce and compromise and try to get what we're seeing over. But it was get overable. It was never going to work. Never going to work. And it didn't. It never worked once, did it, Conrad, in your opinion?
No.
Oh.
No.
So wasn't a fan of it. That string of creative that seemingly all landed in the same place, the same town, the same TV show, just illustrated our creative ineptness at that point in time.
It's only just a few days after. I mean, that's what's crazy and what jumps off the page to me in hindsight. This Undertaker angle happens 3 days after the Katie Vick, I fucked your brains out, Hunter's having sex with a corpse in a funeral home while there's a real funeral happening next door.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Bruce says, as the legend goes, they go to this real deal funeral home in Nashville and are shooting this scene, and they didn't want to do it. And they did one that was sort of straight and serious and one that was over the top campy, because that's the way they thought Vince would never go for it. And ultimately he went for it. And
yeah.
The whole throwing the brains at the camera, I just effed your brains out, and all of this is what Vince wanted. And they thought, well, this is so over the top, he'll never go for that. And he did. And as that's happening, someone in literally the other room next door is grieving a real loved one that they lost. Yeah, Meltzer would say this: introducing the Undertaker angle 3 days after the Kane angle showed no pacing, and doing those with the pay-per-view main events took all the steam out of the important matches themselves, since they have nothing to do with how the important aspects of the story wind up, which is a murder trial or divorce court. I do think even the SmackDown show was missing a little in the soap opera department. Even though it was working, the shows were too good to criticize. So there's lots of good wrestling going on here, but some rather regrettable creative in hindsight. Are you in this era, are you raising your hand at all and saying, boss, I don't know about this? Or is
of course.
Yeah.
Of course I did. But I did it with he and I one-on-one.
Yeah.
Remember my theory: converse, don't confront.
That's right.
The boss works for a lot of people in different ways of life. Have a positive and healthy relationship with a decision maker. Don't be an idiot.
Right.
Don't outbook yourself. This is just, when I went over our notes for the show, I think I might have told you this earlier. I said, man, we're going to have to really work hard to make this show entertaining. Good. As a broadcast, it was the shits.
Yeah, it was. So Jim, let's talk about Nicole Bass. She's got a lawsuit here against the company. It's going to get thrown out in the month of October. And it was something you had to testify during.
Right.
I know she's no longer with us, but what can you tell us about all this? What was her gripe? And how was she as a person? We haven't spent a lot of time talking about her here on the program.
Strange, unique personality. She had the look, big, muscular, she was a kind of a dollar store china. She big muscles, female, and all that good stuff, but had no product knowledge whatsoever. Didn't have any wherewithal at all about pro wrestling. She was a creature of the Howard Stern show. So all of a sudden that made her credible. I say that with a tongue in cheek. I remember vividly, her lawyer, well, I was on the stand there in New York at the trial, and we unbooked her a lot. I quit using her at Vince's request because she was horrible. She didn't know how to work. I mean, literally did not know how to work. Nicole was an 8x10, and was a meet and greet type thing. So I booked her. The guy says, well, if you didn't like her work, why did you book her in Canada for this big fan festival? I said, because I knew she could sign her name, and that's all she was asked to do. She'd have to wrestle, sign your name, be nice, shake hands. And that kind of shit on her case, because I didn't unbook her because any specific reason other than she didn't have the skills.
Right.
But that was one of those Howard Stern things where, all of a sudden, we have people that were big Howard Stern fans, as was I. And so you noticed over time, some of his Rat Pack people made the appearances on Raw.
Yes.
Back in the day. But Nicole was a Howard Stern alumni, had some name identity, she should have been like a bodyguard, or never put her in a match. And I didn't. After a while, no, I'm not doing that. I'll put her ringside or somebody, give her so we can advertise her and people can see her. But sure as shit don't need her wrestling, but she didn't know how to wrestle. So I'm not knocking Nicole. I guess I am. I hate to speak bad of the dead, but she was an attraction. I tried to explain to people on this podcast over the years the difference in what an attraction is. Abdullah was an attraction. Andre was an attraction. They're once seldomly seen talents that you make special. How many holiday battle royals can Andre work in? Well, we're going to find out, because we're going to book you twice a day, because he'd come in and work with Cowboy, and I would be with Cowboy and him on Watts' plane, making sure that Andre had all the Popeyes chicken and the wine and the beer that he wanted. I think with the chicken, and during the day we had beer, or he had beer, and he'd sit there and watch his plane and watch us flying the plane. It was quite a scene. Been a great scene for a movie. Cowboy sitting up front, flying his plane, looking back and talking to me and Andre, and and then Andre eating that damn chicken. It's funny that one of my jobs, I had a lot of jobs there, but one of them was a chicken buyer. I knew Andre liked Popeyes. And of course, in Louisiana, Popeyes fried chicken is like a religion.
Yeah.
It's spicy and it's good and all that stuff. So if he had cold beer and maybe 100 pieces of chicken, he was a happy giant. And that's what you want to keep, a happy giant.
100 pieces of chicken.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Well, I mean, to Andre, a wing was like this.
Right.
So it's boom, it's like eating something, appetizers. And he could have 2 bites and the chicken breast is gone.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Andre. So was Andre's stories. And the irony when you hear these Andre stories about how many bottles of wine he drank here, or they had to put him on a luggage cart to get into his room, and all those things, those are true.
Wow.
He was probably the most famous drunk I ever been around.
Well, that says a lot, especially in wrestling. Shawn Michaels makes his big comeback at SummerSlam, but we haven't seen him now, and we're like 2 months out. Was this supposed to just be a one-off? Was this a wait and see? Was the ball in Shawn's court? What do you remember about that?
I think it was more of a wait and see, Conrad, because again, you don't know, Shawn's going to go all out. That he's going to give you 100%. He's going to try to do all of his famous stuff. So I think that the theory was, well, let's let him get as healthy as possible. And if he can get all the way healthy and get back, he got cleared and he was ready to roll. So it's just a matter of not taking any chances. The back is a delicate thing, and you didn't want the back to somehow slip out of place or disc issues or whatever. So it was just because we knew that if he was healthy, nobody could touch him.
Right.
At that point in time. And I'm not knocking Flair at all.
No, 02 is a different ball game.
Yeah, big time different. You're right.
Let's talk about how the ball game is changing for you guys, though. Meltzer would say, even though crowds have been down for some time, it's pretty stunning how badly the advance for the No Mercy pay-per-view in Little Rock is. At press time, they've only sold about 4,000 tickets for a show less than 1 week away, in a building that holds 18,000 that was being cut down to 12,500. They haven't had to majorly paper a pay-per-view to this degree in years. So listen, you're probably handling payoffs for a lot of guys in this era. How startling and alarming is this? And is this really the entire talking points and subject matter whenever you guys have get-togethers with Vince?
Yeah, well, you know, Vince trusted my payoffs and my discretionary splitting up of the monies, which was good for me because it let me do my job without somebody, quote unquote, looking over my shoulder. The only payroll in my days there that Vince even reviewed was pay-per-view payroll. All the the Raws, SmackDowns, the house shows was just me. And that worked out better. It wasn't that way in the beginning, but then I had to fit into Vince's schedule based on his timeline to get him to approve this payroll so I could get it out on time. I was a big stickler on not, the worst thing you can do is have late checks.
Right.
I mean, shit. And these guys, a lot of them, even though many of them were making really good money, they were living check to check. No different than I would bet you a lot of the wrestlers today are doing the same thing. Of course, they're buying more stuff. I need another Rolex.
Yeah.
I need another car. My girlfriend needs a boob job really bad. So I don't know. It was so unsettling at that point in time. But the last thing you want to do is to get Shawn Michaels back in the ring early to see how he's going to feel and jeopardize your main event, which is Shawn and Hunter. So that's kind of where we were with that. Just be careful. Let's ease into this thing and be careful so that we can get our match in the ring.
Well, on the go home edition of Raw, Kane comes out and says he didn't kill Katie Vick. It was an accident. And of course the crowd, as Kane is pouring his heart out, starts chanting what? Because they don't give a shit.
That's right. They didn't give a shit. They wanted to see some wrestling and some violence and some aggression, physicality, not wrestlers becoming thespians, talking about their lesbians. So it was just bad time, Conrad. Just a bad, like I said, I think I might have told you this yesterday or day before, whatever it was. Goddamn, man. We made a turn off the main road, and we need to try to find our exit, get back on the main drag. But it was hard. It was hard to get refocused. And where Raw had been the Wild and Woolly West and a lot of great matches, we stopped having that stuff to any extensive degree. So it was tough. It's kind of tough going to work because neither Lawler and I were emotionally invested in some of the scenes. Now, even though Lawler thought some of them were funny and anything to do with sex is right down Lawler's alley. I say that in respect to Jerry. I love Jerry. But there's a few things that get him, I could say, turned on. That'd probably be the wrong thing. But he would invest in certain things. And that was things like that, Katie Vick, the HLAs, all that stuff was right down his space.
Let's also mention that there's some continuity problems with this promo. Of course, the crowd doesn't care. They just want it to get over with and go on with the rest of the show. But he claims, he being Kane, pronoun boy, he claims that 10 years ago, when he had his first match, Katie was his friend, and they went to a party after the match. She drank a few too many, so he wanted to drive her home. She wanted to go in her car. But he wasn't familiar with driving a stick. It was rainy. The windows were fogging. An animal jumped out front. He swerved to miss. Anyway, he wrecked the car, broke his arm, and she was dead instantly. And when Kane said she died, there were cheers. I guess people thought that meant maybe that was the end of the interview, but instead Triple H comes out and says Kane's lying. There were empty beer cans in the car, and he claimed he was drinking while driving. And then the autopsy showed Kane's semen. And Triple H explained that Katie didn't like Kane in that way, so Kane forced himself on her, or he did it after she was dead. So Hunter is saying, Kane, you were drinking and driving, and you killed this woman because you were reckless and careless, and you either raped her before that, or once she was dead, you committed necrophilia because your semen was inside of her. This is all on a wrestling show, and
pro wrestling show.
Yeah.
And Daddy, what's, I said, to go back to my original thought.
Yeah.
Daddy, what's semen?
Yeah. Ask your mother.
Yeah.
The other thing that, as a wrestling fan, made me, besides all this silliness, because Meltzer has to Meltzer, when he says, she was at my first match 10 years ago. Well, 10 years ago would have been 1992, but of course, Meltzer says, please don't try and make sense of the original Kane storyline that Paul Bearer had him locked up in his house because of how badly he was burned until 1997. So there's holes everywhere, but semen is not a word I expected to ever hear on WWE programming.
Or any pro wrestling show.
No.
Any pro wrestling show.
No.
They're just taboo topics. I started to mention this earlier. If I was a booker, luckily I'm not, would never have storylines involving religion or politics. Never going to consider them. So don't even pitch the idea. No religion and no politics. It's just, we hear enough of that shit without having to tune into a pro wrestling show to get more of it. It's wall to wall in the news. And sometimes recreating pop culture and trends is a good thing, but it's not a good thing if what your topic is not a good thing. So in other words, if you focus on war and death and things like that, then that's not good. Even though it's timely, it's not a positive piece of business. So we had to find our way out of this fucking rabbit hole somehow, some way. And it couldn't come soon enough for me.
No kidding. This is just awful. Well, let's talk about the show. We're finally here. The buy rate this year is 298,000. The prior No Mercy had Austin versus Angle versus RVD on top. And of course, Jericho versus Rock. It did 325. Not a ton of fall off. So I don't know. Maybe Seaman Angles are over. Meltzer would say, while the advance was poor and there was enough papering, particularly in the $200 section, the building looked fine on TV. Reports were that there were close to 10,000 people in the arena, but probably about 5,500 paid. Listen, 02 is an interesting time for the company. We're going to change the name of the company. This is really the first year we've been operating where there is no competition. There's no WCW. There's no ECW. TNA starting, but they're not really competition, just not having TV and only running Wednesday pay-per-views. Did you feel like this was just cyclical, or was this a panic button year for the company?
I didn't know. I don't think we knew exactly where we wanted to go.
Yeah.
I think Vince kept changing his mind on direction. The talents themselves that would have, I am surmising private conversations with the old man, would speak up to say, we need more wrestling.
Yeah.
I'm not really comfortable with this. I'm going to do it because that's what you want, but I don't think it's the right thing to do. And Vince, steered the course and was hell bent on maintaining the direction that he was starting to establish. But I think a lot of us were ready to get past this. It just didn't seem healthy. It didn't seem like we're building anything, and we're taking the eye off the ball of what made wrestling special, and that was competition and drama, and hangs in the balance type things, like a sports team. But we veered off course on that thing, and it was not a happy landing.
Let me ask, I've always wondered, we've heard for years, at least 20 years, maybe not that long. I'm trying to pinpoint the phenomenon that Vince McMahon changes his mind as the wind blows.
True.
Was that always the case, or did it only start in the absence of WCW and ECW? Because
no, I think it's always the case.
Okay.
I think it's always the case. He would think things through, and then he'd rethink them. And the time he got to TV, sometimes the playbook changed. That's just him thinking things through and adding and subtracting and things of that nature. So he's always been one to wield his muscle on the ability to change, because he was the guy. He was the decision maker in the biggest wrestling company in the world. And, that's kind of where we left it. He was our guy, and we're all going to do our best to support him. But God dang, it's just hard sometimes with some of the creative that we came up with.
Well, let's jump into it. Chris Jericho and Christian are going to retain the World Tag Team titles over Booker T and Goldust. Meltzer says it was a well-worked match. He gave it 2 3/4 stars. There is a pretty scary moment where Jericho's going for a lion salt and the turnbuckle gives way. Luckily, Jericho's not hurt at all. Jericho gives Goldust a facebuster on the belt, improvises pretty quickly from the planned lion salt finish, and climbs to the top for a moonsault finish. And Meltzer would say Jericho deserves a lot of credit for totally keeping his cool when the rope broke and the match nearly fell apart. It's live. There is no dress rehearsal. No way to go back and redo it. Good thinking, quick on his feet. Jericho still salvages it, but pretty scary deal whenever you see the ring is breaking in the middle of the match, no?
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate accidents. And like you said, luckily nobody got hurt.
It's a much better use of Christian than the Un-Americans here to have him working with Jericho. But it does maybe highlight just how quickly his star has fallen. I mean, earlier this year, he's going on last at WrestleMania. Now he's in the opening match in a tag match with Christian, Booker T, and Goldust. No knock on any of those guys, but that's not exactly where we might see The Rock or Austin. And yet here he is. Had Jericho maybe lost a step or two in the mind of Vince McMahon? Did Vince no longer see him as the top guy at this point?
Vince saw him the same way he always saw him, 5'10".
Okay.
And obviously Jericho is superseded those old connotations. Like I said, we know he's got a new contract with AEW. That's a great get for Tony Khan. Jericho's invaluable at every television. Sometimes he works with us on Rampage, which I want to thank the fans for joining us on Friday nights, because the ratings are coming up and we're doing better. So we're trying to build that brand. That's all. Simple as that. Simple as that. That's why I'm on that show, is to give it a little different sound and a little different look with our other broadcasters. And I love working with Excalibur and Shivani on that show. It's the three of us. We make the three work, and 3-man broadcast teams are challenging. Of course, then I say that and I look around, there's been occasions out there at the announce table where we had 5 guys, and that's challenging. That's dancing with a lot of different music playing. So, Jericho, I don't think Jericho still lost a step, Conrad, to be honest with you.
Right.
He seems to up the bar every time. And with him having now some newfound authority and administrative responsibilities, I think it's going to help our product overall from start to finish.
Well, I don't think anybody can argue that. And I don't think anybody can argue that Al Wilson, Lord bless him, was doing his best when he was interviewed by Funaki here. Funaki's going to ask Al, why are you wearing clothes in the shower? And Meltzer would call the whole skit lame and says it was really just because we were in Arkansas, set up so Al could say, I did not have sexual relations with that young woman. Of course, maybe the company was thinking this would be funnier than it really is, but thankfully it was fast. And
right.
We could say the same thing about the next match. It's Tori Wilson and Dawn Marie, 2 very attractive young ladies, but maybe not pay-per-view wrestling ready. Meltzer would call it worse than indie level, and he's seen people in their first matches do better than this. Wilson won with a messed up neck breaker. This had no point at all on being on the show, as nobody cared to see these 2 wrestle. Negative half a star. They're doing their best. They're doing what's asked of them, but they're probably in a pretty bad spot here.
No win.
Yeah.
Couldn't succeed. And that booking was booked to fail, because neither were ready. The highlight was the entrances, because both ladies are very attractive. They had a lot of sex appeal, all those nice things you want to list when they exist. and they existed here. They had a lot of Dawn and Tori had a lot of sex appeal, but when the bell rang, the bottom fell out.
Next up, in our third match, Rob Van Dam was going to pin Ric Flair in 7 minutes and 59 seconds after a frog splash. Meltzer would note that the crowd was quiet for this one, and that nobody really wants to boo Flair or see him get beaten up on, and you would think somebody would have picked up on that in the last 7 years. But nobody wants to boo Rob Van Dam either. So Flair's going to do all of his trademark spots, even taking the slam off the top rope. Van Dam does the Rolling Thunder. That sets up the finish. 2 stars. It does feel like it's just sort of a throwaway match, but you've got 2 really big stars here. But maybe, and sometimes we as fans overestimate this, or underestimate rather, you don't really have a clear baby face and a real heel. And I know sometimes guys say, well, that doesn't matter in 2022. But in 2002, you need somebody to boo and somebody to cheer. And
exactly.
The crowd likes both guys.
Well, so what? That's up to the talents to listen to what the audience is demanding or wants, or what they're buying or what they're not buying. And, I don't know that we had a good handle on how to book Rick.
Yes.
I think that what we should have done in hindsight, which is always pretty viable, is Rick should have been booked as an attraction, seldomly used, but when he was used in a positive manner. In other words, he would go over more often than not. But I don't know that we knew how to book him. Rick, and to Rick's own, the scenario with Rick was, Rick didn't really want to ever be a baby face.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. He likes being a heel. That's what he grew up on. That's what attracted him in the original AWA territory. By the way, that AWA documentary on the Dark Side is excellent. Those guys at Dark Side did a phenomenal job of editing that piece. It was hilarious at times. They had a very eclectic cast, and they all delivered. So the editing of that piece, of course, they're there all day taping sound bites, not knowing what's going to be used or what is or isn't. But they did a terrific job of editing that piece and telling some classic AWA stories. So I was very happy for the editing. Rock's $7 folks, Brian Gewirtz and all those cats. They got product knowledge. They know what they want to see, and they know what will work and what won't work. So I watched that on Tuesday night, and I thought it was just a outstanding presentation. One of the better dark pieces of content that I've seen in a long, long time. So good stuff there. And I had a big wrestling night on Wednesday because I was here in Florida and watched Dynamite, obviously, and certainly concerned about Hangman Page, as we already discussed. So, it was just I thought that was a really nice job by those guys. And I haven't always agreed with the Dark Side of the Ring people. They're not bad people. They're good guys. But sometimes when you edit and you don't pay strict attention to the edit and you put an answer to a question that was not asked, it's unsettling. And that's what I perceived that to be on one of my situations there. Don't remember which one it was. But it's not a big deal. They did a good job. They should be proud of their efforts. And you guys should watch it if you get a chance.
That AWA episode had one of the most amazing Mad Dog Vachon stories of all time. You'll know the one I'm talking about when you see it. Let me just say that. And next week, I've already got a chance to see the Florida show. Fantastic. Go out of your way to see it. I'm loving Tales from the Territories. I think you will too. Next up, we get Big Show. We see him doing a little heart-to-heart with Stephanie. Bischoff comes out. He's mad that, he's talking to the enemy. And, of course, Big Show winds up throttling Eric and complains that he should be a main eventer. So maybe he's going to turn. Maybe he's moving to the other show. But this is next verse, same as the first. WWE doesn't ever really know what to do with Big Show, do they?
No.
Yeah.
No. Again, we overexposed him from the beginning and didn't stop. Attraction. 7 feet, 400 plus. He's a fucking attraction. I don't want to see him every week. He's not going to diversify his repertoire every single week because of the physical limitations of a man his size. So, but I don't think we ever got a good handle on how to book him. It's like if he's on the sheet and he's available, then let's use him. That's the old logic. Well, he's getting paid. Well, we're decreasing his value by overexposing him. You never saw Vince Sr. or Vincent J. or Vincent K. or any of them overexpose Andre. Andre came in for specific purposes to shoot specific angles, and then he would be gone for a while. He may be in Oklahoma working a battle royal in the Superdome for Cowboy, or he may be, someplace else. But I don't know that I look back on it, there's few talents that I never thought we did a great job in. We could have done a better job, put it this way, of developing. And Big Show was certainly one of those guys. Like I said, same issues that I have with how our inability to effectively book Ric Flair. How do you not book a giant and try to recreate some of the Andre feel if you can? How do you not book effectively, arguably the greatest singles wrestler of all time? This frustrating stuff. Sitting on the inside and looking at it, there wasn't a lot we could do about it because this is what the boss wanted. These are the plays he wanted to call, and that's what he did. So, but there's certain talents there that we missed on, and I never did understand that deal. I mean, guys like to be around show. He's entertaining. He's had some surgery. I think he had hip surgery. I saw him just the other day at one of our shows. I think he was on a walker or a cane or something like that. But he's kind of beat up. He says he's coming back and he's going to be in great shape and he's going to have some more matches. I hope that he's right. I'd love to see it. It could help AEW, no doubt, if he gets over. But he's got to get healthy. And but we never booked him well, ever, I don't think.
Next up, we got Jamie Noble pinning Tajiri in 8 minutes and 15 seconds to retain the Cruiserweight title. Meltzer would say, not much heat, which is what happens when you don't promote a match ahead of time, but it was a good match. Meltzer gave it 3 stars. I've really always liked both of these guys.
Me too.
I think this was a great pairing. I think Noble and Tajiri are just criminally underrated. They would maximize their minutes, as you like to say.
Yep.
But how great were Noble and Nydia together? I mean, what a package they were together.
They have great chemistry, Conrad. They blended well. They fit together well. And they were not used as much. If Jamie Noble had been bigger in size with Nydia's personality, but the charm of that act was how the two of them interacted. So even though Noble's under 6 feet tall, he was a hell of a little hand.
Yeah. Good
mind for the business. I think he's still working for WWE as a producer or an agent or something, whatever they call him. So he very talented kid. It's just he's 5'8". But I like that combination. They entertained me. And they did it the right way.
Next up, the main event, or not the main event, rather. The world title, though. It's Triple H and Kane, and it's going to be what it is. 2 3/4 of a star. Kane's going to choke slam Flair. He's going to survive a belt shot and a sledgehammer shot, but he can't survive the pedigree. And unfortunately, this is one of the worst angles of the year. Meltzer would even say it is the worst angle of the year. But the crowd in Montreal, which Meltzer would call the easiest city in the universe to get a pop, just groaned about this one because it's all about this terrible storyline. And unfortunately, even though the match is decent, you and Lawler, I'm sure, have Vince in your ear saying you've got to talk about Katie Vick, almost to the expense of the match. There's a lot of interference, and it is what it is. This one's just sort of here. Would it have been better? I mean, clearly it would have been better without Katie Vick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what you call in a simple, give me one word to describe that match. Cluster fuck.
There you go.
It was we stumbled, fell, drug ourselves, picked ourselves up, fell down again to get there. Then when we got there, it was just so much diversion, and it's almost as if that we didn't have confidence that they could work. And Triple H and Kane always had good matches.
Right.
And they had good chemistry, and we did all we could to destroy that. And I didn't understand that logic.
Well, I don't understand why everybody isn't using AG1. I actually started using Athletic Greens during the pandemic. At the very start of the pandemic, my wife wanted to optimize our immune system. We found since then, though, that AG1 can help you with better gut health, more energy. Maybe you hate taking pills or vitamins. Well, AG1 could be for you. Maybe you want a supplement that actually tastes great. Well, AG1 could be for you. So what is this stuff, AG1? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. It really works for all your things. Think about this now. Your aging, your focus, your recovery, your energy, your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system. It's like all in one nutritional insurance. And our friend Dallas would appreciate it because it's lifestyle friendly. Whether you eat keto or paleo or vegan or dairy free or gluten free, it has less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything, and it still tastes good. It's going to help you with your sleep recovery and sleep quality, your mental clarity, your alertness. And how about this? Don't just take our word for it. Athletic Greens has more than 7,000 5-star reviews. And right now, Jim and I think it's time you reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/JR. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/JR to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
I got a lot of friends that are using Athletic Greens. All are happy with it. They all feel better. It's good for your anything that you can do to help your sleep or your digestive process. Give it a shot. The great thing about this, and Conrad and I talk about this all the time on this show. We appreciate and are grateful to all of our advertisers, but the advertisers that we are partnering with, the products work.
Yes.
Earlier we talked about Manscaped and all the advantages of Manscaped. Totally different ball game, different content product than Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens will make you feel better. It'll help you clean you out. And I'm a big believer in that. I'm an avid Metamucil, at least one a day, and sometimes more, simply because it's fiber. I'm an old dude. I got to stay regular. So Athletic Greens is right in that same wheelhouse. Something you have to think about. What are you smiling about?
I'm just smiling about how silly this is, that on this pay-per-view, we decide to try to clean up that messy SmackDown storyline. Stephanie's going to bring Tracy into her office, and they're going to talk about how she's now banned for life. And Stephanie's going to ask her woman to woman, of course, there's 250,000 people watching, what's really the story? And then she admits she hasn't been with Mark in 7 years, and that Paul Heyman called her to make up the story, but she wanted Mark back and would do anything to get him back. And Meltzer would say the acting was so bad you couldn't stop laughing. The Undertaker shows up. He was hiding while all of this was going on. He says she's a lying bitch, and Stephanie boots her out. Everything about this is just laugh out loud bad.
Yeah.
Boy, we're trying some soap opera, but not one of them is hitting so far.
No, we're 0 for life.
Yes.
Or 0 forever on this entertainment portions of our proceedings. It was just, it's hard to get away from it. I told you this, we've talked about this, we laughed about it. This is going to be an interesting show to do because the show was the shits.
Yeah.
It had some moments, but not enough to save it.
Next up, Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit become the first SmackDown Tag Team Champions, beating Rey Mysterio and Edge in 22 minutes and 3 seconds. And folks, if you're going to watch one thing on this show, this is it. It's a 4 3/4 star match. Meltzer even calls it a match of the year candidate. I don't want to spoil it. We know what the finish is going to be, But seriously, if you've got 22 minutes to watch one great wrestling match today, make it this one. It's Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit over Rey Mysterio and Edge, 4 of the best wrestlers in the world in 02 or anytime. And it's crazy to think all these years later, 20 years later, Mysterio and Edge still doing their thing, 4 3/4 of a star. I'm sure it would have been a fun match to call, but again, it's a SmackDown match, so you're not calling it. But these guys are just magic together, are they not?
Yeah. And I even though I would love to have called it, obviously, I love sitting where I was sitting and watching it.
Yeah.
Because it was just, for a fan, art. It was art. And some great visionary hired all those guys.
No doubt. No doubt.
I'm so proud of those. Steve said, JR, what's your legacy going to be? I said, hell, I don't know. We'll see how everything ends at the end of the day. Hopefully it'll be a nice exit for JR when it's all time. But golly, man, those guys are just phenomenal. And that match, they clicked. It clicked. There was a Canadian element to it. There was a awareness, cooperation. They're all challenged each other to be at their very best in this match, and they were. So I'm with you, Conrad. If you're going to watch one off this show, and this is a good one to invest 22 minutes in.
Oh, for sure.
So check it out and enjoy it. For those of you, and many of you didn't see it, you'll say, man, that match will stand up under any scrutiny in any day or time.
Next up, another interesting match before our main event is Trish Stratus pinning Victoria to retain the women's championship in 5.5 minutes. Meltzer would say the only thing I remember about this match was Lawler asking about the vague backstory of how Stratus kept Victoria out of WWE. And when Ross didn't know, Lawler said, you know everyone's shoe size, hat size, and what college they went to, but you don't know this. So a fun little moment with Jerry busting his pal's balls.
Yep.
And then it's time for the main event. And this is sort of the forgotten Hell in a Cell. It's The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar in 02 in Hell in a Cell. They go 27 minutes and 18 seconds. There's blood early. There's chair shots. If we didn't have that fantastic Edge and Mysterio and Angle match, I would recommend this one. A fantastic match. Meltzer loved it, gave it 4 stars. Lesnar goes for the last ride. Undertaker blocks it, turns it into a DDT. Finally, The Undertaker goes for a tombstone. Lesnar reverses it and powers Undertaker to his shoulders and hits the F5 for the clean win in the middle. Brock Lesnar is going to retain his title here. This is a hell of a match, and I know that these guys have so much future with them. I mean, all the way to ending the streak and even beyond.
Right.
What a career, what a pairing these guys have had together. But to think about them doing it 20 years ago when maybe Undertaker's at his peak here. Maybe Brock is still a little green, but they pulled together a 4-star performance in a Hell in a Cell. And it's almost maybe the best forgotten Hell in a Cell of all time. What say you?
Probably in that conversation without a doubt, because when you think Hell in a Cell, you obviously go straight to Foley and Undertaker in Pittsburgh, in 98. And there were other great Hell in a Cell matches. Undertaker and Shawn had a great Hell in a Cell, in my opinion. But it was those guys overexceeded. I think Undertaker's leadership and his guidance in that match helped Brock along, because all you had to do with Brock was kind of give him the tight wrist grip, like, okay, here we're going to do this or whatever. I just thought it was a great presentation, and it was great for Brock to get. That was a signature win. The only thing I didn't like about it was it's all going to be on SmackDown. I got no part of that deal, so I missed out on that, to be honest with you.
I want to mention the 4 minutes into the match, we've got some blood out of the forehead of Brock Lesnar, but eventually, Meltzer would say, Undertaker did a juice job, the likes of which you rarely see. Blood was flowing from his head like a faucet, almost small puddles. This is one of the bloodiest Undertaker matches of all time. Obviously, it adds a lot of drama to any match. But
yeah.
Where are you at on blood in matches in '02. What I know that, society changes and all that jazz.
Yep.
Was there too much here?
Well, you mean too much? There's too many blood incidents, or just too much blood in this match?
Too much blood in this match. Like, go ahead.
Well, considering the two bulls that were in there and their physical dimensions and mindset, it might have been too much, but it didn't bother me. For get a lot of blood just as a shortcut because you don't know what else to do, I probably would not have bought into it as much. But that's not Brock or Taker. They had plenty to do. They just wanted to add more drama to it and heighten the feelings for the victory for Brock Lesnar over, greatest legacy type guy in the history of WWE, even above Andre. So Taker's tenure and his length there was just sensational. So, yeah, I thought that the match was bloody, but maybe close to too much, but it didn't offend me.
Well, it was a really good show, and I know that maybe the silliness of the Undertaker cheating and the silliness of the Katie Vick thing, maybe that takes away from it. But when it comes down to it, that tag match and this main event, there's something else, man. To the point where even the readers of the Wrestling Observer gave it a 79.9% thumbs up.
Yeah, it surprised me.
Some of the stuff is just sort of there, but man, those two matches, I feel like just saved the whole freaking show.
You're right.
Francis on Twitter wants to know, do you think the Undertaker made Brock into a top star with this match?
It sure as hell didn't hurt.
Yeah.
So did it complete the deal? Probably not. The process was not totally completed, but as far as moving Brock, continuing up the ladder with the credibility and the Lesnar legacy, it paid off. It paid off big time. So good question. And the answer is yes.
Adam wants to know, it's been long rumored that the power bomb from Bubba to Triple H, where Tripp's head hit the corner of the table on a Raw in September of '02, killed what could have been a lengthy singles program between these two. Do you have any knowledge of this? And do you know if there was ever a plan for Bubba and Triple H at No Mercy? Or was the Kane and Katie Vick angle always the plan? Great question.
I think the latter. Yeah, it's a good question. I think the latter is your answer. It was always the plan. I mean, Bubba and Triple H would have had great matches. Yes. They could have had a great program. Bubba's a great in-ring talent. And he's found himself again, seems like. He's getting a lot of work. He's doing some work. What is he with Impact?
Yep.
Some Impact stuff.
Yep.
On my own network, Access TV. But they would have had a good deal. I never heard any blow up or any, well, I'm not going to work with him because he hurt me type thing. Triple H is a tough guy. I don't know if he ever complained about. Now maybe it's the talent's going to see this show or to listen to the show and say, "Oh, JR, come on, you know better than that." No, he never complained to me, so that's all I got to go by. I can't go by what he said to the Brooklyn Brawler in catering. I don't know. So yeah, I would have liked that program, but it just never obviously got off the ground, and I don't really think it had anything to do with Triple H hitting his head.
Let's talk a little bit about Pastor Tim's question. He says, the Katie Vick angle, despite it being despised, is just one example of the bad taste moments in wrestling history. This particular event seems to be the nail in the coffin of the Attitude Era. Would you agree with that? And how soon after the angle aired did WWE recognize they'd gone too far from a public appetite and perspective?
I don't think it took too long.
Yeah.
I mean, the feedback in the next 24, 48 hours after that stuff aired was pretty telling. Be honest with you. I don't know if it ended the Attitude Era. What ended the Attitude Era was less Austin and more somebody else. Rock was gone. Austin was hurt. But I don't think it ended the Attitude Era. And it's arguable, Pastor. You may have something. You may be onto something. But I think that but I don't see that ending the Attitude Era. Again, Austin, McMahon, all those cats, Rock, not being available or not being there, that's really what helped contribute to the end of the Attitude Era, in my view.
Next week here on Grilling JR, we're going to be talking about Halloween Havoc 1992. Spin the wheel, make the deal. Jake the Snake Roberts and Sting are going to headline the show from the Philadelphia Civic Center. We've also got Ron Simmons defending his championship against the Barbarian. Rick Rude's in there with Masahiro Chono for the NWA title. How about Steve Williams and Steve Austin, two totally different people with the exact same name, are going to take on Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes for the tag titles. Nikita Koloff is going to challenge Vader for the U.S. title. It's an interesting time in WCW in 1992. We'll talk about that next week. I find it fun that we just talked about Raw Roulette, and next week it's Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal.
Yeah.
Speaking of spinning the wheel, making the deal, Jake Roberts himself is going to be on ad-free shows, taking your questions this week. If you're a top guy, talking about this particular show, Halloween Havoc 92 on the 30th anniversary. You can also check out my recent conversation with Bill Apter on the Insider series. He told some stories that he's never told before, that I'd never heard before, about Hulk Hogan, about Howard Finkel, about Vince McMahon. We also have a deep dive on the world title that Ron Simmons made famous over in WCW on the 1-year anniversary of the passing of Reggie Parks with his protege, if you will, belt maker Dave Milliken. Eric Bischoff sits down to chop it up with Raven and talk about their heat from the WCW days from the very first time. We also had to sit down with Jeff and Karen Jarrett talking about their experiences in AAA just in time for Triple Mania. And of course, you get all of our shows here early and ad-free for just $9. So go check it out, adfreeshows.com. And what goes better with old school wrestling? A little down home barbecue, the all-purpose seasoning, still a favorite. Baby. Last night, Jim, my wife made some delicious pork chops, and it's kind of weird because I've always been a thick daddy pork chop guy. She goes thin to win, so she'll make a stack of these little thin pork chops.
That's it.
Nothing sets them off better than your all-purpose seasoning. She doesn't opt for the barbecue sauce, but she never, ever misses the all-purpose seasoning. So if my wife is out there playing on the Rec Tech, I know one thing's for sure. It's going to taste good, and it's going to have your seasoning on it, dude.
Yeah, and we're doing our very best to keep up with all the orders. So we thank everybody for your support. JRsBBQ.com. The store never closes, costs nothing to look. And we're just grateful for all the business and the gratitude is prominent. And we appreciate you guys supporting our brand. And I know it made little Jan happy because that was her project. And I'm just trying to keep it alive while I'm still alive.
Well, let me tell you, so you guys are doing specials all the time. Just in time for AEW this week, you did 25% off your sauces. You also said if you spent more than $25, you get a Topps trading card signed by JR. Folks, I want you to understand, if you go look at that on eBay, that costs way more than the sauce does. I don't think Jim and his folks have figured this out. They're giving away too much value here. It is a signed trading card from JR. If you send that off and you get it slabbed, that thing's going to be worth well over $100, maybe hundreds of bucks. Go take a look right now. It's jrsbbq.com. He's got specials all the time. And there's rumor and innuendo that if you're a hot sauce fan, you might have a little trick or treat coming your way at the end of the month. How about that?
I swear to the good Lord, it's imminent. And I'm so ready. It's just hard. You know, I learned so much in this business about it takes time to develop products, especially when you're developing a food product, Conrad. It's just hard to, all the hoops you got to jump through and all the legal steps that's got to be taken, which I understand and I agree with. You want to feed anybody a bad product, we're not going to do that. So the hot sauce is, I'd like to hope that by next week we'll have definitive information on the whole rollout of that stuff. So it's going to be, if you want hot, baby, Red Ass JR's bringing you something now. So let's see what we think about it. I'm excited. I hope you guys will try it.
Folks, really, check this out. I just looked this up, Jim. I'm on eBay. Your signed trading cards from Topps. I'm looking at one right now for $100. I'm looking at another for $75. I'm looking at another for $113, one for $112, one for $199. Jim's just giving this shit away, y'all. What is he doing? Go to jrsbbq.com right now. Get yourself a great deal. Try the sauce. And let me give you a little pro tip. I understand you're a wrestling fan. Look behind me. I'm a collector. I get it. But don't just buy one bottle for the shelf. Buy 2 bottles, one to try, one to display. And here's a spoiler. you're going to go back to your shelf and eat it and reorder. We're in a reorder situation. It's great stuff. It's can't miss. And that all-purpose seasoning, don't sleep on it. I hammer it here every week because I believe in it. I'm a regular user of the product. You're going to love it. jrsbbq.com is where you can pick it up. And next week, man, Halloween Havoc 92. It's a coal miner's glove on a pole. The pole is about 300 yards in the air. No one thought about this at all. I don't know how we decided a coal miner's glove. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly of WCW, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, that was my last year in WCW, 92.
Yeah.
Because soon thereafter, I came to WWE at WrestleMania 9 in 1993. So that was my last foray and one of my last pay-per-views that I got a chance to participate in there at that point in time. So it's a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack, as you like to say.
I know we don't normally talk about current stuff all that much, Jim, but before we get out of here, I want to ask, the news has broken through Dave Meltzer. I think we're still waiting on some other confirmations, but Meltzer has confirmed maybe the first piece from the controversy that happened in AEW in September. Ace Steel no longer with the company. I know you're not a part of the office. I know you can't comment on that because you weren't involved in that, but I am curious. Did you ever spend any time with Ace Steel?
Yeah, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
He did, he has a lot of product knowledge, solid hand. And I thought he did a nice job. I didn't work with him directly a lot. I'd see him at TV and he was always, friendly and approachable. But maybe, I don't know. I'm sorry to hear that because I thought he was a good hand and did a nice job there. But, things have a way of working out. You never say never, but I always thought he did a nice job for us. I know he was very loyal to CM Punk. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
We're buddies. And I'm assuming that CM Punk's the guy that got Ace Steel his job. That'd be my guess, wouldn't you? I mean, it seems logical. So anyhow, I don't know where all that's going. I hate to see anybody lose a job.
Yes,
and
always
lose a paycheck. That's
yes.
the deal. So, but he was while he was there, he seemed to be a viable asset. But again, I didn't work with him directly. I didn't have any issues, pro or con, with him. But the bottom line is another guy lost a job, and that's what's regrettable.
I'm curious to see what's next for Mr. Steele because I do feel like, and I want to fully disclose, I'm a Ring of Honor fan from way back, so I'm very familiar with Ace Steel and his history in the wrestling business and helping guys like Colt Cabana and CM Punk get their start with his school and whatnot. But I think because of all the controversy, boy, he's probably got more name recognition amongst wrestling fans than ever before. So I'm curious to see what's next for him. Yeah,
it'd be interesting. He's got skills. He's got skills, Conrad. And I would think that if he's given a fair shake within the landscape of wrestling in general, he'll find some work. Smart guy. We'll see how it works out for him. Hope it works out well. And I regret that anybody anywhere in wrestling loses a job.
Well, we hope we still have one next week right here. We'll see you as we're talking Halloween Havoc 1992 on Grilling JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
Thanks, Conrad. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Had fun doing this wacky-ass show that's got 2 matches on it you need to watch if you can. But next week will be a lot of fun, a lot of nostalgia next week in the 1992 version of Halloween Havoc. And we hope that you'll tune in and join us for our show. We appreciate you guys very much. And we're kicking ass in the numbers. Show's doing great. Thanks to you guys. So I'm grateful. I'm appreciative. And I'll see you next week.
Right here.
I'll see you. But a matter of fact, wait a minute. I'll see you Friday night.
There you go. I like that. Check Jim out this Friday night. It's a brand new Rampage each and every Friday. And you don't even have to get on a plane this week. You're spoiled.
Oh, sir,
look
baby.
at you.
I get my little vehicle and ziff right over to Daly's place, which is adjacent to the stadium. And I'll be there Friday night, and I'll be there Sunday. Because you park the same area that you park for wrestling as you park for football. Cool thing. It's a nice treat that we get from the cons to allow us access to the games and parking and all those nice things. It's a cool perk. So I'm going to enjoy that this weekend. So, but I could talk about that forever. But I enjoy the football, and I just wish the Sooners played here, but they don't.
Well, I've had my fill of college football talk this next week. We'll see you next week right here on Grill and JR.
See you, everybody.